Hello, we should be live, everybody. Is there a way for us to see the comments? Hi, everyone. If you can hear us, we just want to do a little bit of like checking technical. Please leave us a comment just so we know you can hear us.
I just checked my YouTube. It's live on YouTube. So yeah.
Yay. So if you're listening here, we're live on LinkedIn through the event on my LinkedIn page, and we're also live through Frankie's YouTube channel. So that's our backup option. So we're going to just give everybody a couple minutes to make sure that everything's going smoothly. Exciting. And also, I just want to give everybody a quick heads up. This, for the four of us, this is our first time using StreamYard together on LinkedIn. So be patient with us as we learn how to make sure that everything's working properly. So yeah, I see a lot of hellos. This is great. I'm really excited that we're live on LinkedIn. All right. So one more quick question. Is there any way to see Saya, and this is what we mean by technical testing, to see that this is definitely live on LinkedIn, that we could see who's attending or how many people are attending, or is it just the comments?
We can go into LinkedIn to check. So I'm actually going to go to your page and open it up. But I got notification that it's live on my YouTube as well. And right now it is happening now on your LinkedIn.
Somebody asked, is there a link for YouTube Live? If you guys have the link to your YouTube channels, we should, if you can, drop that in the comments.
Yeah, Frankie, I can drop yours in the comments if you want.
Yes, please. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Great. Well, I think since everyone is still joining, but it looks like we're live. This is a really exciting event. We've been preparing behind the scenes for you guys. So why don't we just go ahead and get started, and we can just go over briefly how this whole thing is going to go about, and then we can jump right into it. So for those of you who might not know me, my name is Amanda Herzog. I'm going to be the moderator of this event. I'm going to introduce all of us, the three panelists, or technically four, including myself and the host, in just a minute. I just want to go over some quick things of how the session is going to work. So as I mentioned, there's going to be four of us, and we all come from different backgrounds, but we have two main things in common. We are all internationals living in Sweden, and we all are entrepreneurs. But we have different business backgrounds, different industry backgrounds. And so what we've done is we pulled this group together to answer the most common questions about how to start your own business in Sweden as an international. And if you're not an international, if you're a Swede, you're definitely welcome to join. Just a lot of our information is going to be from that extra perspective. But of course, it's your background, your country, you're going to get help as well. So what we've done is we had a link to a form where you all could send your questions in advance. And as of right now, we had 134 questions come in, which is a lot. So what we've done is we've tried to find a way to take the most common questions that repeated themselves, and also that was most relevant for this group. And we have put them into 7 different categories. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take turns based on our background and our experience trying to answer these questions in each category. So I want to go ahead and go through the categories really quick. So the first category that we're going to get right into is how deciding if you should start a business, if that's actually the right path for you, because a lot of you are on the fence about it. Then we're going to move into legal questions such as business registration, just, the basics of getting started. Following that, we're going to go into visa-related questions. So what happens if you want to apply for self-employment visa? Followed by finances and funding. How do you get funding? How do you manage the finances of your business? Followed by finding customers. How do you find customers and do marketing? Then we're going to go into just some examples of our real stories and experiences, because we promised you guys we would be honest. We would be really clear about what we have personally experienced, and we're going to tell you the truth. So there's going to be good and bad, which you guys know that we try to be honest. And then we're just going to do a wrap up at the end with some quick practical advice. So that's how the session is going to go. We will have a recording that's put out afterwards on the Inner Talents in Sweden YouTube channel. And just a quick disclaimer, in this session, we are not giving legal advice, financial advice. We're just giving advice based on our own personal experiences. We do have some expertise in this background, but every case is different, especially when it comes to legal matters, visa matters. So make sure for your unique situation that you go and find a specialist who can hear your particular background. So with that being said, now that we're through all of that, I think it's time for us to get started and introduce ourselves. So I will just quickly start with myself. My name is Amanda Herzog, and I am moderating today's session, but I will also be answering some questions as well. I'm originally from the US, and I've lived in Sweden since 2017. My background is originally in marketing, but I found that the Swedish job market was really difficult. And in the end, I decided to start my own business. And that led me to found Inner Talents in Sweden to help international professionals to understand the job market better. And so what we offer at Inner Talents is courses, ebooks, webinars. You can visit our website. You'll be getting that in the emails I send out. I'm really excited to share about what I've learned about entrepreneurship today. But with that being said, I really want you guys to meet the other panelists. So if you guys can just quickly introduce yourselves, I want to start with Saya from Emigrate. Can you just tell us about your background really quickly?
Yeah, hi everyone. Very happy to be here with this group. I am the co-founder and CEO of Emigrate. So we're a Swedish-based platform that helps individuals and companies navigate immigration and global mobility with clarity and confidence. I am a serial expat, so I'm originally from Japan, but I've been through the immigration process in 6 different countries. I moved to Sweden in 2019, and since starting Emigrate, then I've also been working as a relocation consultant here since 2021. So my goal is to empower immigrants by helping them have access to the information that they need in order to safely and compliantly move abroad.
Thanks for sharing that about yourself, Saya. I then want to move on to Frankie from Experience Stockholm.
Hi, everybody. I'm Francisca Leonardo. I go by Frankie for short. I'm Portuguese Canadian, and I've been living here in Stockholm for about 5 years now. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Experience Stockholm, which is a company that organizes sightseeing experiences and events here at the community level in Stockholm City. My own path here wasn't exactly linear. I came to Sweden to do my master's in biotechnology at the 3 Stockholm universities, Karolinska, KTH, and Stockholm University. And after graduating, I applied to 300 applications. I got a few dozen interviews, but nothing worked out. And I decided, well, there's got to be more to life than waiting on other people to see my value. And that's how I ended up in entrepreneurship. So today I have a team of 10 people in my own company. I'm very happy to be an employer and give an opportunity to other people to also show their talent and share their talents with other people. And I also like to share some business advice or how to get started as an entrepreneur in Sweden on my YouTube channel, which we are also using to broadcast this live stream. So I'm very excited to be here today. I can't wait. I think we have a lot to share. So yeah, pass it on to Jagadish.
Yes.
All right, Jagadish.
Yep. Hello, everyone. This is Jagadish. I'm the founder of Citadev, a company that helps international talent in Sweden find career paths in tech. So we provide different training programs. You don't have to have any background in tech. You can join our programs and get employable skills. But coming to me, I come from India, and I came to Sweden first in 2012, and then again permanently moved in 2019. I never thought I would start a company in Sweden because I came just like anyone else, just for work. But I eventually ended up becoming an entrepreneur. But my first entrepreneurship was almost back in 20 years ago. I started my first yoga studio. Then I had quit as soon as I started. Now I wish I hadn't quit, but that helped me learn a lot of things. So when I started Citadev, I never quit. So as Frankie said, so I have a lot to share. It was not a linear path. There are ups and downs, highs and lows. So hopefully you could relate a lot of our stories with where you are standing today. And I'm very excited to this session. Yep.
Thank you, Jagadish. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your backgrounds. And we're going to be learning a little bit more about your stories as we answer each question. I just want to double check with our audience. Is everyone here still? It's been a little quiet in the comments. I just want to do a double check on technical. And also, are you guys ready to get into the questions? I mean, a lot of you sent in questions, so please leave a comment if you hear me. Because if I don't see any comments, okay, I see a few comments. Yeah, tell us which city you're joining from.
Yes, I'm in our live on LinkedIn, and I can see that we're still live.
Great. Perfect. I do see a couple comments coming in. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, guys. As Elena said, you guys have such a nice energy, and this is really awesome. It's going to be even more fun now that we're about to start the questions. I mean, you guys, we got 134 questions, and some of them were quite specific. So we tried to make a mix of, let's say, overall questions, like starting questions, and then also specific. So let's not wait any further. Let's go ahead and get into the first category. So this category is the question of, is starting a business the right move for you? So a lot of people even wonder, like, how do I know should I start? Am I really ready for entrepreneurship? Is this even the right step? And before we answer these questions, I just want to preface that this is specifically how to start a business in Sweden. So a lot of the answers are going to be related to that. So let's start with the first question. The first question is actually to myself. So the question is, many internationals debate whether to keep applying for jobs or to start their own business. How do you know if entrepreneurship is the right choice for you? So I do think it's going to depend based on each individual, but I can quickly give you my own background experience of what led me to entrepreneurship. I will first start and say that I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't know if any of the panelists, can you relate to this at all?
Yeah, I also didn't want to be one.
Yeah, I didn't set out to be that, no.
I did not. I never. In fact, I used to see entrepreneurs and think that just looks like a lot of work. It looks stressful. Like, I just want a stable job. And basically what happened is I got several jobs in Sweden, and I went through 2 different layoffs, and I needed a visa sponsorship. So after the second layoff and losing my visa sponsorship twice, I decided as an international in Sweden, maybe I would have more stability if I had my own business, if I could sponsor myself, if I could get work more easily as a consultant. So I ended up registering myself as a marketing consultant, which led to Intertalents, which was supposed to be a fun side project. Now it's my full-time job. So what I would say is, how do you know it's right for you? You need to look at your individual circumstances and situations. So for me, it actually made sense from a practical perspective to do it. And I actually ended up really loving it because I had more control than the Swedish market was giving me. So I just want to challenge everyone here listening. If you think you've been through, let's say, several layoffs, or you're tired of the instability, or you just want to take more control over your life, definitely keep an open mind to entrepreneurship, but listen to our responses today to decide, like, do I want to take on the challenges as well? But I think I made a comment on LinkedIn the other day that I think was quite popular with people, which is Sweden has a way of forcing you into entrepreneurship. Can you guys, yeah, we're all kind of laughing here. So I'll end it at that. And I want to go on to the next question, which is for Frankie. So here's your question, Frankie. You applied to 300 or more jobs before deciding to start your own company. So what made you finally say, I'm going to do this instead? And what should others look for in themselves before making that leap?
Yeah, so in thinking about this question, I want to premise a few things. So first thing is, I'm 27 years old. When I graduated from my master's in Sweden, I was 24. So this meant I was really young. I had my whole life in front of me. So obviously take it with a grain of salt. I didn't have a lot of responsibility, no family that was dependent on me. So I had a lot of privilege when it came to that. And I feel like a lot of young people may resonate with this. We are now graduating university with high quality degrees. I went to 2 Ivy League, top universities. So, we have the skill sets, we have the academic background, but then when we graduate, we don't have a job market that can, actually welcome us and meet those demands from us. So I felt that after all these applications and after going through several interviews where constructive criticism wasn't really given, it was like, oh, you're always great, but I never got given the job. I started to recognize the pattern that not only was the recruitment system and the application process very outdated for the needs of current graduates and what I was demanding also as a young employee, but I recognized also that my value as a candidate or as an applicant was completely independent from whether or not I was being given an opportunity, right? I feel like a lot of young people, when they graduate, maybe they lack confidence. That was never a problem with me. I had a lot of crazy self-belief, and I felt that, well, if other people don't recognize that in me, if they don't want to invest in me or give me an opportunity in terms of a job, then I'm going to create my own opportunity. And this meant that obviously I had a lot of the right conditions to do so. I was young, I could fail, and still come back up and do other things. I had my education, that's always a safeguard, and I had savings, so I could start businesses and still have a little bit of runway money to keep me, afloat. So these are things that I would just say, if you have the right conditions and you have the right mindset and you're tired of being rejected, and you feel like there's got to be a better way to do this and find some meaning and purpose through work, maybe entrepreneurship can be a path for you. So this is when I realized, okay, maybe this is a path. I never considered it before. I never saw myself as a business person. I had no background in business whatsoever, but I felt I had a lot of skills and I had all the drive and motivation to do something myself without having to rely on others to see the value in my skill set. So that's why I became an entrepreneur.
All right, that definitely very relatable, but it's good that you are able to share some more about your specific background, because each of us has a little bit different background to each other. I want to go ahead and move on to Jagadish. So here's my question for you. You are a serial entrepreneur. So what advice do you have to give to people who need to decide what their business idea should be?
Okay, so when it comes to idea, it's very important to define what is idea for you. I mean, whoever wants to become an entrepreneur, most of the people think when it comes to starting business, you should have a unique idea, or you should have an idea that no one knows. So only you should know that idea. But that's not true. So your definition of idea must be solving a problem, or solving a problem in a better way or in an innovative way. It doesn't have to be a new solution. Maybe a lot of other people are solving, but you can solve it better, or you can solve it in an innovative way. Maybe you can use technology, or you can use some other resources that you are good at. That is what I would put. There are so many ideas, but the point is which idea is close to you. Again, when I say, every time I say idea throughout this session, you think of it as solving a problem. So what problem you could solve with the skills that you have now, today, and you can work on that. That's what I would recommend, the thought process of defining the idea.
Thanks for sharing that, Jagadish. Next question is for Saya. So Saya, you owned a business for 6 years before you moved to Sweden, and then you started a new business in Sweden. So what made you decide to do it a second time?
It's going to be so unmotivated. It was a lack of options. In terms of, I had a successful business in Honduras before I moved here. I exited, but I was a generalist. I had no education in Sweden at that point, and therefore I was unemployable for even internships. Like, I couldn't get anything. So then ultimately what came around was, I'll just do it myself again. I think sometimes I would love to have a 9 to 5 and to be able to leave my responsibilities at work. But I also love the fact that I can individually impact the direction that my company is going, that the work that I put in, I can see the tangible proof that comes out of it, and I can control the vision of my own company and stay true to my own beliefs as well. So that was kind of a combination of, I think I'm always meant to be self-employed. I think I might be a terrible employee if I was like middle management, but also because at least here I felt that there was a lack of options for myself as well. So self-employment was the only way. But similar to Frankie as well, I was in a privileged position to have the finances to be able to take that plunge. And I also had the confidence in myself to be able to pull it off because I had already done it once before.
Well, thanks, Saya. You know, I'm starting to hear a little theme with a lot of us is there was a lack of opportunity in Sweden, and we all also wanted some form of freedom or control over our situation. So can you guys just leave us any comments in the chat if you find any of this relatable? Maybe if you're thinking about starting a business, are you kind of in that place that we were before we started? I think it would be really interesting to see that. I see a few comments here as well. Yeah, some people are doing consulting, support from the Swedish government. Oh yeah, we're going to get into that. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move into the second category, which is legal. So legal related questions such as how do you actually register the business and so on. So my first question is for Frankie. So what are the key legal steps and requirements to register a business in Sweden?
Yeah, so I just want to premise that in the past, I've registered both as a sole trader, so as a freelancer or consultant for those of you who are watching. And I also have registered a business as a limited liability company, such as my current business Experience Stockholm. So these are two different types of businesses. So the first thing you need to know in order to know which steps to take in terms of paperwork and bureaucracy is which type of business do you want to open up? If you're a sole trader, you're going to be working for yourself, by yourself, self-employed, likely a freelancer or a consultant. If you have a limited liability company or an aktiebolag in Swedish, AB, this requires some upfront capital. So this is a different requirement. The sole trader, you can just start anytime. I think it's a 30-minute application. I have a video on my YouTube channel that you'll check out later in the resources document. It explains step-by-step how to do it. But a limited liability company, you do need upfront capital. So you need a minimum of 25,000 Swedish crowns of investment. And this is capital that then you put into a bank account when you open a bank account, and then you can start deducting from there to use for your business activities, okay? Then there's other frameworks beyond a sole trader and limited liability company, for example, a trading partnership or a limited partnership. You can also have a branch of a foreign company. So this really depends the framework that you would follow and the types of bureaucratic procedures and needs, requirements that you would need, depends on the type of infrastructure or structure that you set up your business with. But there's always commonalities across all of them. The first thing is you need to register your name and also the board or the articles of association with Bolagsverket, which is like the company's agency in Sweden. You also need to apply for business tax, F-tax, apply for VAT if you're under the VAT bracket, value added tax. And if you want to be an employer, if you want to employ people, you also need to register as an employer with Skatteverket, the tax agency in Sweden. And the final things that you need is to open a bank account, obviously, to do all your business, transactions through, and follow bookkeeping and tax labor law obligations, because that's always a must. And we're going to talk later about bookkeeping in just a minute. The only other extra requirement for an aktiebolag, a limited liability company, is that upfront capital. All the other ones you don't need to have any money to start. So, yes.
Yeah, you just got to do all those things. It's not that hard. I'm just throwing out a little joke there. But don't worry, guys. We're going to take you step by step. Frankie, I was wondering if you could answer this comment that we have here in the chat from Simone. Should you do sole trader for contract work or LLC? By LLC, she probably means
limited. Yeah, limited liability company. It really depends what kind of contract work. I would say if you want to, again, cover your bases and reduce liability for yourself, meaning let's say you have to take on a loan or take debt or whatever. Limited liability companies, they protect you as a person. Like if you're the owner of the company, they protect you because they have limited liability. The entity is the company. If you're a sole trader, you're responsible for that debt, for that loan, for whatever like liabilities your business has. So it really depends on the kind of work you're going to be doing. I can't give specific advice, but a lot of consultants, I think they end up doing sole trader. If their business grows beyond, like crazy amounts of money, then maybe they start a LLC. So yeah, maybe that's just some quick advice.
Great. Well, that's a good place for us to start. I have a question for Jagadish next. So the question is, should I register under my own name or a separate company name, and what are the implications?
Yeah, actually, Frankie summarized everything very well. You can go for N-Skilled Pharma, which is sole trader, if you want to register on your own name, which is very straightforward process. But if you want to have a separate legal entity, actually, Frankie mentioned everything. So you are a separate legal entity as an individual, but when you register a Equitable Ag, a limited liability company, that will also be a separate legal entity. So the liability is very less on you. I would recommend personally, even if you're doing consulting or one-person consulting, always register Equitable Ag, because if things go wrong, you can get some good insurance from insurance agencies. A lot of things become much better. But then it comes with bookkeeping and year-end closing, some little bit administrative work. But it is more or less same for the one-person company also. And the other three types of companies, the trade partnership, another partnership, and economics forestning or something like that, those you will do when you want to do with more than one or two people. So you are not going to do a business by yourself. Maybe your friends or your colleagues, all together, you decided to solve one problem, you found one business opportunity. You clearly don't know that you can't do it alone. Then you know that you have to find a way of registering company, so that eventually will come to you. You don't have to actually do more research. But if you are someone who wants to enter into entrepreneurial journey, I recommend going with Equitable Ag, because there are so many advantages. You can buy a lot of stuff through the company and can save taxes and some other stuff. With the N-Skilled Pharma, you end up paying more than 50% in taxes without doing anything by default.
I believe there is a tax bracket where if you're making more than, I think it's 45,000 SEK, is it a month? That then it makes more sense to register yourself as an OBI company in terms of saving with taxes. But I just want to add a quick little note to that. What a lot of people recommend is if you're starting a business in Sweden, especially if you're just kind of testing the waters, it's a lot less commitment to start as an N-Hold firma or a sole proprietor. And then once you make a certain amount of income, you just switch over to an OBI. That's like a really kind of simplistic, straightforward advice, but it's what's pretty common if you just want to kind of understand if it's the right fit for you. But with that being said, Jagadish, I do have a follow-up question for you, because you also work as a consultant, and we got several questions. A lot of you were really interested in consultancy, basically as a backup option. Instead of having full-time employment, you're still doing the same kind of work, but as a consultant. So here's a question we have for you. Is it better to register my own company name or work through a consultancy company? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah, so usually it's very common to work under an umbrella company when you are doing consulting, because the umbrella company signs the contracts on behalf of you with your client, and then they will handle all the taxes and they will just pay you the salary. Or if you have sole proprietorship, then you can just send invoice and the taxes are handled very easily. For starters, I recommend approaching to a umbrella company so that you can get started from there, especially when you have clients and you understand how the taxes are handled and how the expenses are handled. And then eventually you can register your own AB company and start sending invoices. When you have client in consulting, I don't recommend personally starting N-Skilled Pharma, because there are a lot of limitations if you do N-Skilled Pharma. With AB, you will not have that limitations. Even if you lose the client also, there are some advantages you can use with the AB, also in terms of the getting Akasa and some other benefit. It's very hard to explain everything in this session, but I think Amanda will be sharing you all the resources after our session. So make sure to check out. I also made some posts around this, so you will find more information on that. But to answer in a nutshell, to find further consulting, start with the umbrella company, with the third-party company, and when you feel comfortable, register your own AB.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And also, I just want to remind everyone, we are sending out a free resource document at the end of this. So if you signed up to the event and you left your email, you will be getting an email in about an hour and a half with this resource document where we will have a lot more details about some of these questions. So I think it's time to move on to the next topic, which is very popular. We had a lot of questions about visas because I think a lot of us who are here, as a lot of you who are watching who are international, some of you might be an EU citizen, but many of you are not. And that's a big motivating factor in terms of, I want to stay in Sweden. Should I go ahead and sponsor myself? Is there anybody here who's in that category, by the way? If you are one of those, or maybe if you sent a question into the forum, let us know in the comments so that we know how many are watching who want to know about this. Again, we had a lot of questions. We have Saya here from Emigrate. That's her whole business, is helping people to understand basically how to get approved for visas, or not to get rejected. We could say that as well. Also, I think the comments are a little delayed sometimes, just letting you guys know. Sometimes I see that they come in a while after we ask the question. So I'll give you guys a minute. But let's move into the visa category next. The first question is actually for Jagadish, because you have personal experience with this. So the question is, can I start a business while holding another type of permit? So for example, maybe a work permit. Tell us your experience and your advice.
Yeah, so before that, I want to highlight one point you mentioned. There are many advantages of registering a company. Forget about running a successful business and everything. One of them is visas for international talent. So instead of waiting for the worst case scenario where you have to leave the country in 3 months after losing the job, if you already start your own entrepreneurship, that can actually save you from legally staying here when you apply for the business visa. And my case was different. I was not considering any visa implications. In fact, I was actually worried what will happen to my work permit if I register business, because I was on my first time work permit, and I was not at all planning to register any company or any business. Because I dropped all those ideas in India and came to Sweden to peacefully work as an employee. But then I started training, mentoring, people started getting jobs, and people started expressing interest to pay. And then that's when I wanted to register a company. And then this big doubt, I think this is most common doubt or question a lot of people also raised to me personally when they wanted to register the company. Can I register when I'm on my work permit, or when I'm on my first time work permit? Yes, you can register. You don't have to wait until you get permanent residency or citizenship or long-term residency. You can register, and it is said very clearly on the migration agency website itself in one page that you can register, but it is not going to help you in any way in extending your work permit. So when you apply for the extension, they don't consider this business in any way. They will always consider your work, whatever your primary base for the work permit. Maybe in worst cases, if you lose the job, you can use it to apply for business visa. That's a different story. But there is one very important point, legal aspect you need to follow. That is taking NOC from your current employer. That is the very important step. You can't just go and register a company while you're on work permit, especially when you're an employed, full-time employed. You have to talk to your employer, maybe HR, and tell them that you are planning to register a company. Most of the times, they will have no problem if there is no conflict with the business, and they will just say yes. I think legally, if I'm not 100% sure, no one can legally bind you from not registering a company or pursuing a better opportunity in Sweden. So there will be no objection in most of the cases. You can just ask, take the NOC step. Some people miss this point. Once you get the NOC, you can just register using all the processes that Frankie explained a few minutes ago. Yeah, that's all I would say. That's how I registered. We took an NOC and then registered the company, and then started our sending invoices to our customers.
Well, thanks, Jagadish, for sharing your experience and your advice, because I know you've been through this before. I'm looking through the comments. I see an interesting comment about if you're looking for roles in the tech and IT industry, which is actually your background. You work in tech. And somebody dropped a name of a few consulting companies. I just want to mention really quick the resource document that's going to be sent out after this. I actually have a link to a pretty big list of consulting companies in Sweden. A lot of them are tech and IT, but we have a range of a few other things. You can also go to the intertalentsinSweden.com website, and you will find it on that page as well. I'll see if I can drop it in the chat here in a minute, but I just wanted to go ahead and mention it while it came up. So the next few questions I have are for Saya. Saya is the expert with us. She's done a lot of live events. Saya and I have done a few live events, and I'm excited to ask you these questions, Saya. Are you ready?
Yes, I will say so. I'm going to answer a lot of these questions based on the requirements for people that need a self-employed permit. And I'll go briefly into like if you're on like a dependent visa, for example, what those sort of things are, but I might, with the main requirements, I'm going to focus specifically on pursuing the residence permit itself.
Yeah, because this definitely can change depending on your specific situation as well. So again, we just want to remind everyone, you can take this advice to guide you, but definitely consider maybe booking a session with Saya, just like a short consultation, maybe to understand, or there's some other recommendations that we'll be sending out with the resource document, but we're just going to add that disclaimer again. With that being said, should we get started? You ready for the first question?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, so the first question for you is, what are the main requirements for the self-employed visa in Sweden, including, generally speaking, the minimum income, proof of funds, insurance, F-tax, and bookkeeping? So just give us a broad idea of this.
Yeah. So when you're applying for your first self-employed permit, you don't need to have insurance or minimum income or anything like that yet, but you do need to actually have proof of a select number of funds. And I'm going to go first through kind of the absolute black or whites. So you need to show that you have enough money of your own to provide for yourself and any family members outside of the kind of the expenses of running the business. So right now that's the equivalent. It's about 20,000 euros for yourself, plus 10,000 euros for your accompanying spouse, and then an additional 5,000 euros for any child to basically cover the permit period of 2 years. But that doesn't take into account, they'll also calculate based on the business plan you submit, what they think your expenditure is going to be over those 2 years, and then kind of incorporate that into the planning. So if you just have straight 20,000 euros, then that would typically be considered too low. You need to show that you have considerable experience in the industry and previous experience of running your own business, but you can kind of offset that if you have can show more experience in the industry. You need to have relevant knowledge in Swedish or English, and the demand for Swedish is getting much higher. You have to have executive ownership or responsibility over the company. So for example, if you do an AB, you can't do 50-50 with somebody. If you want to use that as your self-employment permit, is you need to have at least 51%, and you need to have a very clear founders agreement that shows that you have the executive decision making over the company itself. And then you'll need to submit a budget and a business plan, including your marketing, sales plan, competitors, what your services are going to be, pricing, and your motivation behind all of that, as well as showing that you've created customer contacts or a network, which can obviously be quite difficult if you haven't actually started the business yet. But in that case, it's good to try to submit at least 3 letters of intent, even if they're non-binding. So the requirements are quite high, and what they're basically trying to see is that you have thought out your business well enough and you are properly experienced in order to actually make the company successful within a year and be able to start paying yourself a C-level salary by the time you're up for extension in 2 years.
Yeah, and I just want to go ahead and add that we are going to go into the categories a little bit more about the financing, budgeting, and marketing. So, for example, like the how do you get clients? So, I know you guys are going to be really curious about that. But while we're still on the visa topic, Saya, I just want you to go into more specific details about this next question, because we got this a few times from several different people. And I think it's something that's not talked about enough in detail, let's say in free online sources, Google, whatever the case. And I know you know the specifics. So here's the question. What kinds of operational evidence do decision makers at Migrationsverket value the most? So, for example, a professional website, marketing material, an active network of potential clients. Basically, what do they need to show?
I mean, all of it really, but I can tell you basically what the 5 biggest reasons for rejection are based on what I've seen in decision letters. From rejections is having little to no experience running the business, having little to no experience or education in their intended field, no customer list, no Swedish proficiency, and not having majority ownership of the company. They also tend to go into the business plan, because I think a lot of people will apply for the self-employment permit without registering a business. They might not even build a website because their whole business plan is word of mouth. And they haven't set up any sort of network yet. When it comes to having a professional website, that is actually super important, because the agency or the case officer will check your website in order to check to see if it lines up with your business plan and if they think that this is a viable sales tactic. So whether you plan to sell through a website or not, it doesn't matter. You still need to actually have a good website, because that's as much marketing for the case officer as it is actually for your customers as well. I think that marketing materials and book trade events aren't as necessary, but an active network of potential clients is quite an important one. So generally, I recommend that people should submit at least 3 letters of intent or sign contracts with their applications. And another thing, because I've noticed a lot of questions around here regarding working as consultants, if your plan involves only having one client or one customer, you will likely be rejected. Because then the agency will look at that as if you're just, let's say, hired by Volvo as a consultant, and that's your whole business model, then you're effectively an employee. But the company is not having to fulfill any employee requirements for you. So the general recommendation is that you should have a business plan that involves you having at least 2 to 3 clients on a rolling basis, because that way also, if one of your contracts falls through, you have then other contracts in order to supplement that income. So they don't like it if your whole idea revolves around having only one client at a time and working with them 100% of the time. So it's about having a good understanding of the business, and really tying it into something that you have experience in, or that you can show that you have the experience, that you can have the executive decision making over it and make good choices for it as well.
So I just want to expand on that a little bit more, because a lot of people are confused about, we know that Migrationsverket, they want to see that you have client contracts, you have a website, or you have money coming in. But a lot of people express a concern that's really valid, which is, if I'm just starting the business, it's a huge learning curve. I have to learn how to get customers, how to do these legal contracts. So can you give us like a general timeline of from the time that they apply for a business visa versus when they need these letters of intent, or they need this, evidence that they have customers? Can you just give them like a estimate?
Do you want me to be optimistic, or do you want me to be realistic?
be both.
Okay. So my general recommendation to people is that your application should be as complete as possible when you actually submit it, which means that you should actually have those letters of intent and the full business plan and all of those things at the time that you submit your application. So my general recommendation is the minute you get to Sweden on whatever permit, start planning self-employment. Whether you plan to pursue that or not is an entirely separate thing. But let's say then you have 2 years, let's say on a work permit, to actually like start thinking about a potential business idea and how it lines up with your education and experience. You can slowly start crafting a business plan, slowly start networking at different events and start to develop professional relationships with people and spend that time building it up, because it's better to spend a few hours a week or a few hours a month making a very robust and comprehensive business plan and idea that you can then, and then you build up relationships with like warm contacts that you can get non-binding letters of intent, because then it's also like no risk for them, right? They can sign these to just say, yes, if this existed, then I would be interested in using your services, but it's not binding, so it's fine. But it's at least showing that there's an interest for what you're offering. And if you can get those over a period of time, but like, I think it's better to honestly, if you're overseas on a residence permit and your right to work is dependent on having kind of a reason, then I think you need to focus on risk mitigation and kind of shoring yourself up as early into the process as possible, because there's a lot of people then that will get laid off and then 2 weeks before their 3-month grace period will be like, I'm going to submit a self-employment permit, but they haven't registered a business, which the agency looks at of like, how soon before you applied did you register, especially because an firma doesn't cost a lot, and whether the business plan has any legs at all. Because the problem is these days, if you submit an incomplete application, you're counting on the fact it might take them 2 years to look at it, but they might look at it immediately and be like, this isn't real. This isn't a viable plan, and immediately reject it within a few months as well. It could go in that direction. So I think you need to start focusing as early as possible and potentially never have to use it. Like you might never have to apply for self-employment, but I think it's better to actually have that plan rather than to do it at a rush at the end, because the chance of rejection is so high. Because last year, I think only like 109 self-employment permits were granted. It's not a high number. So, but it can be done. I've consulted with people that have done it, but they put a lot of thought into their case.
Yeah. I think we should actually spend a little bit more time going into these details because people are really curious to know. So I'm going to ask you some like quick specific questions. I'm going to actually go into the chat here to grab some of them. But before I do that, I just want to expand on one thing you said about should you apply or should you register your business before you put in your application? Can you just be really clear to people on that timeline?
I do recommend, because one thing that I've heard is that the agency is now taking more into account what did you do for the self-employment steps and how soon to the deadline of application did you do that? Because if they see that you got laid off and then 2 months later applied for a sole proprietorship, then they're going to find that funny. Whereas I generally recommend to kind of, as soon as you have the idea of potential self-employment, whether you plan to pursue it or not, I personally think that you should apply on the earlier side. But also take into account, if you want to apply for it just as you apply for your permit itself, you need to probably give yourself a month buffer for registrations and all of those sort of things as well. So it's not, if your business plan is robust enough, then I don't think that's the make it or break it. But if it looks like everything was rushed at the last minute, it doesn't help your case.
So it's the full picture, basically. They look at the holistic. Got it.
Yeah. And I do have a resource for this. So in the resource thing that you're sending out, I have a self-employment starter pack that also includes the common mistakes and the risk mitigation that you can take to counter those specific reasons for rejection as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a lot of really helpful, like detailed advice. So a lot of your questions you guys are asking, there's going to be specific links that will answer those questions in the resource document. So make sure you check your emails or follow up with me. If you don't get the email, I'll resend it to you. I want to take a quick question here in the chat. what should the business plan include? Anything specific to get chances of approval? So we're talking strictly in terms of the visa approval, not the more entrepreneur side in general.
Yeah, so typically you would need to obviously have what you offer, the specific services and the pricing, your marketing strategy. So that includes kind of, is it outbound, inbound, what platforms are you going to be using and what techniques, your sales strategy, and you need to have a good website as well then, who your main competitors are, and like what is your unique selling proposition. You need to do your expenses, so what your monthly expenses are going to be, and you need to be quite specific with that. Take into account the cost of a computer, the cost of electricity. It's not just like, oh, I'll be operating out of my living room. Then you need to take, rent and those sort of things into account. How will you get your customers? And another thing is, if you don't have Swedish within the company, how do you plan to incorporate Swedish into your company? That's becoming more and more a thing that comes up, is that they're believing that if you don't speak Swedish, how can you be the executive decision maker in terms of like dealing with the authorities, for example? It's becoming more and more of a thing. So then you also need to determine who your clients are. And ideally then for anybody here, your clients should be then internationals or like somehow international companies, but inside of Sweden. Because then you're dealing with people that speak usually then English as the main language of business, but it proves why it should be in Sweden. Because like having a company that does remote work and only works with people overseas, then they're going to say, but then why does your business need to be in Sweden as well? But that's becoming more and more the Swedish one. I'm seeing in a lot more decision letters recently as well. But with that, you can mitigate it by showing intent. Oh, I will bring in a Swedish salesperson at this level of income, or when we get this number of clients, I'm taking Swedish classes to this level, or all of my sales can be done in English because this is the specific clientele that I'm trying to reach, and these are the specific people I'm trying to support.
We have another question here in the chat that I'm wondering if you can answer, because a lot of people are asking the similar. I've seen a few of these in the chat, and I also saw a few of these in our form that people sent in questions beforehand. So Adam just asked, I have a company in the States for the last 6 years, and I want to establish here in Sweden. So basically what I'm asking is, a lot of people have companies that they're already running, that already probably have customers, income, letters of intent, all that stuff, and they just need to transfer it to Sweden. And they're wondering, can that be done? How does that happen? What advice would you give that group?
So it can be done. And having an established business and having an established clientele list can be helpful. If you're overseas, you obviously need to apply for the self-employed permit. And for that one, then you wouldn't need to register a business yet because you're not here, but apply for a self-employed permit from outside of Sweden, and you would need to wait until you get it. In your case, then you would need to really make a strong point as to why the business needs to be here. So then are you trying to reach Swedish clients? Is it Nordic clients? And this is a great base because Gothenburg has good access to this, and this market. But like, why does it have to be Sweden that the business actually needs to be? So I think that would be the main argument that you would need to put in your application. And then obviously, if you've had a successful business, and then that only helps your case. But the main thing is to prove that why that the business needs to be in Sweden. Then why do you need to actually physically be here for that?
Do you have any examples of people you know who've like successfully done this?
From abroad, I don't have any people. I have people that have successfully gotten self-employed permits from PhDs from inside Sweden and from work permits as well. In terms of for Adam to sell to Swedish governments, I think that one is going to be a bit of a difficult one if there's no Swedish language inside the company. Because if you're speaking with governments, you have to have Swedish language. So then in your case, the best thing would be to find a co-founder that has maybe 25% ownership of the company, and then write a pretty strong agreement that somehow proves that you still have the executive decision. Because I think that their issue would then be, how can you have executive decision if you can't communicate with the government yourself?
Okay, let me ask you another question that we got. Does my industry choice or background affect approval chances with Migrationsverket for a visa?
Yes, sort of. In the sense of, does your industry choice or background, I'm not sure if you mean like passport, but in terms of, you have a better chance of getting approved if your education or job reflects what your self-employment idea is. So somebody that was an IT engineer that wants to start a Korean food truck will probably be rejected if they have no experience in the restaurant industry. Then it's a safer option to go into then consultancy for engineering instead. And I think regarding passport or like nationality, they publicly say they only identify between EU and non-EU when it comes to processing times and things like that. So I can't necessarily like speak for the agency because that's what like I have officially been told. I think that the main thing is just having the finances and like a lot of the finances and prove that they're yours and liquid, and having a good business plan and being able to prove that you can become profitable in a year. And somebody else had a question about what would a C-level visa be, and that would be, right now it would be about 4,500 euros is what you should be trying to pull out by the time you are on you're up for extension.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to actually follow up with that. We're about to move on to the finances category in just a second. And I know you got, that's the whole point of having a business is the money. But before we do, Saya, is there any other questions that you saw in the chat that you were interested in answering? I mean, I know we're getting a lot, but you're the expert in this. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, so a few things. Sweden does not offer a startup visa or a freelance visa. Those aren't things. General recommendation is if you start your own company when you're on a work permit, don't take salary from that because then your own company, because then the agency will count that as a second employment. So then it's better, then you can like get paid with dividends or keep the money in the company, but don't treat then your own company as a way to make an additional salary in that sense, because then you can get into trouble. And if you have to file for bankruptcy, then your residence permit can be revoked, because then the basis for which you got the permit in the first place is no longer valid. With everything, it's always better to take time to prepare and speak with an expert regarding your plans and even get feedback regarding your business plans as well. So I've done like audits of people's business plans before they submit their applications.
Got it. All right. I think, did anyone else want to add anything, any panelists, before we move on? All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next category, which is finance. This is another really popular, I mean, they're all popular topics, but this is, up there. So my first question I have is for Frankie. So this question is, how should a new entrepreneur create a business plan and show budgeting to manage finances effectively?
Yeah, so I will be brief because there's a lot of resources online for this. And I want to add them all to the resource document. So you'll be getting this right after the webinar is over. But there are so many different tools online from Nyföretagaren, Centrum. So they help new business owners, new entrepreneurs, no matter the age. They help you kind of set up a business plan. They even have an online platform that you can go through and like step by step fill out a business plan template. So that is like the most straightforward way. I would say a business plan is something that you definitely, obviously we already heard here, that you'll definitely need for a visa application if you want to be self-employed in Sweden. But beyond that, the business plan is just a document for you to show investors, other people who are you're trying to convince that your business is a good deal, deal. Otherwise, you're not going to be looking at that business plan often. So it is a document, a starting point. I think it can help you, but don't let a business plan being incomplete deter you from getting it going with your business, especially if you already have some form of product market fit. You already start to see some traction with your leads, your customers. So business plan, yes, important for applications, for showing investors everything that you have in the plans, but it is a hypothetical document. So it's just about where you see it going, the vision, and some of the traction you already have and where you're going with that. So if you want to just use a template online, there's like tons of them, and I will definitely include as well the one from Nyföretagarcentrum, because this is the main resource for free things for new entrepreneurs in Sweden. So if you have a community center, a local, branch of this, kind of agency from the government in your municipality, please go and check them out. They also give free advice. So if you're struggling right now with paperwork, depending on where you are, the different municipalities closed down this free service, which was terrible. But depending on where you are coming from in Sweden, you definitely will have access to this type of support and free consulting, essentially, from business coaches and whatnot. I know Stockholm's region still gives it for free. So you should definitely go and check that out. I used their services in the beginning to set up my contracts for shareholders, for business partners, whatever. Like, you can definitely get their help for free. And then beyond the business plan, in order to budget effectively your finances, this is something a lot of people struggle with, especially if they themselves have never run a business before. There's a lot of budgeting sheets online, but one of my favorite resources for Sweden-based companies is Almi. Almi has a lot of resources. We'll also put the link in the resource book or booklet. Almi is a government agency that helps support new businesses. They also have loans, funding, financing, all kinds of things for new entrepreneurs and new businesses. But Almi, they have templates also for budgeting your finances in your business. You should have an income sheet, a cash flow sheet. You should have all the usual bookkeeping. And that leads me to the next question. I know we're not there yet, but since it's a good segue, how do you do your bookkeeping? Why do you need to do your bookkeeping? Bookkeeping is mostly for you. Your own business needs to be in order. So if you happen to not know how to do any bookkeeping and you're like, I can't afford to have an accountant right now, I can't afford to subcontract accountants, then try to use one of those digital tool systems like Bookio, Visma, Fortnox. All of these are more straightforward than doing it yourself on an Excel sheet. And at the end of the year, when you're about to file your taxes, you can just extract a statement from these systems, these digital bookkeeping systems. So if you really have no clue about bookkeeping, finances, whatever, use these platforms that are just, 300 crowns a month. They will keep your finances in order. You just need to manually, match some of the transactions. And that's a good starting point for any businesses with less than 3 million Swedish crowns in revenue a year. If you have more than 3 million Swedish crowns in revenue a year, you'll need an auditor. So this will mean that you're already doing well as a business. You can probably afford an accountant and someone to come and audit your company. Okay, so that's a different problem for a future time. But as a starting point, as a small business owner, you probably will be doing all your bookkeeping yourself. Just keep your ducks in order. Try to use one of these digital software systems. Bookio, Visma, Fortnox, all of them have very intuitive platforms, user-friendly, and many of them also have an English, translated platform version. So that's a good thing for you if you don't speak Swedish fluently. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Frankie. I mean, you definitely have a lot of knowledge in this area, and we're a little bit ahead of schedule to my panelists with our questions. So if you see any questions here in the chat that you want to elaborate on, just let me know or go ahead and answer them. Frankie, did you see anything here that you want to elaborate on? Because I know this is something that you're passionate about, is like the finances, the registration, and just letting everyone know all the practical tips here.
Yeah, that's right. So I see some questions here about, do we need to show the business plan in Swedish? Yes. All the registration that you do through Bolagsverket, through the company registration office, needs to be in Swedish. Everything explained in Swedish. The SNI codes, the industry codes need to be as well applicable locally. So this means if you really don't know how to speak Swedish, you have nobody else you can ask for help, guys, use ChatGPT. It will DeepL. We have technology these days. Just try to translate it to the best of your ability and have someone else check over it. But they do require every single thing that you submit in your application for registering your company needs to be in Swedish, including your business plan, including the activity description of your business, included in Swedish. I also have some questions here or some comments about Nyföretagare Syndrome having really helpful resources. Yes. Sadly, some of them are in Swedish only, but again, use technology, use the Google Chrome extensions to translate the websites, use Google Translate to translate documents, PDFs, whatever. We have the tools today. You can make it, I promise. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us afterwards and book, a one-on-one session or whatever. Like, I think we're definitely happy to help. So I just wanted to answer some of those questions. Someone is asking me, do you need a personnummer to open a bank account? So listen, this is the difficult thing. If you're not currently residing in Sweden for a minimum of 2 years, I know even some refugees, like Ukrainian refugees, they had a lot of problems getting their personnummer just to get stuff in order. I will tell you that it will be harder for you to open a bank account. And without a bank account, be it as a personal bank account or as a private bank account, a bank account for your corporation, it will be hard for you to conduct your business, right? So yeah, personnummer has to be the first step before you start opening bank accounts, because otherwise it will be really difficult for you to get everything sorted for your business. But not impossible. Like, I've opened a bank account without a personnummer. It was a miracle through Handelsbanken, but it took me a while to convince them, but you can. But it will be very difficult. And I know they're even making the restrictions tighter now. So yeah, unfortunately, you'll need to show that you have a personnummer to open up a bank account, be it a corporate one or a personal one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a big source of stress for a lot of internationals, especially if you're waiting on your personal number. And even after you get your personal number, we're just going to give you guys a forewarning. If you haven't already heard, if you're part of the international community or you're in any online group for being an expat in Sweden, you probably already heard somebody's horror story. But even after you get the personal number, which can be a bit of a wait, I think mine took 3 to 4 months to process. And this was back in maybe 2017, 2018. Once I got that, it actually took me several months to get my bank account established. And I went with SEB because I've heard that they're a little bit more open-minded to internationals. And I don't know if it's still the case, but it was the case. But I've heard that there's some banks that are more strict than others. So yeah, this is definitely something that you need to take into consideration for the wait time. Let's say if you want to move to Sweden, how long it could take you to actually get a bank account and established, even once you're physically in Sweden. So so I have some other questions here in finance for Jagadish as well. So here is my next question for you, Jagadish. What funding options and organizations in Sweden are available to support new businesses?
Yeah, there are many actually. Before moving to that, we had a very intense discussion about the visa aspect of business. So, but there are two perspectives, right? One is visa perspective, ticking all the checklist from the migration agency is one thing that you should consider very seriously if your main objective is to get self-employment visa or business visa. But the other aspect is running business in general and running a successful business in general and getting all the support from the system. So this is my favorite topic actually, because I made a post, very detailed post. Again, you will get that resource. Amanda will share after this event. The most of the unicorns are coming from Silicon Valley. It's mainly because 8 to 9 startups fail, or 1 or 2 startups only succeed or just become a good businesses. So that means 70 to 80% of probability of failure in this new entrepreneurship. And when it comes to support systems like funding, investment, why would someone put money when there is a probability of failing 70 to 80%? That is the main reason why a lot of unicorns and successful companies are coming from Silicon Valley. A lot of VCs and government-backed organizations are putting millions and millions of money into the projects when they are just at the idea stage. You take a look at the AI startups now. A lot of billions of dollars are being poured into the AI startups. And so forget about Silicon Valley. We are not in Silicon Valley, we are in Sweden. But the best part is Sweden is the largest exporter of unicorns per capita in the entire world. Sweden punches above its weight. There is no one that could compete with Sweden when it comes to exporting unicorns per capita. And why? Because of the startup ecosystem and the funding opportunities available. So I would give a little bit breakdown of the types of money that you can attract for your business idea. It doesn't matter at what stage it is, but you can still get the money and in how many types. I will also give some examples. Frankie already mentioned some nice company names, but you might not remember them. So forget, don't take stress of remembering the company names, but remember the types of the funding that you get so that you can go and use ChatGPT or Google and find the companies, because there are many. So one type of funding you can get is grants. So companies like Vinnova or the Tillväxtverket, which is also government backed, and the cities, the Gothenburg business region or Stockholm business region, or almost all cities, municipalities, they have some programs in issuing grants. Whether it's the idea stage or whether you want to solve a problem, it doesn't matter. So you can go. Or some universities, if you're a student, you can also reach out to someone in university or go to the website. There will be definitely a grant opportunity for the startups if you're a student. So grants is one thing. Vinnova, Tillväxtverket, region programs, university linked programs, you can apply. Then another one is loans. If you register a company, if you have a bank account, corporate bank account, mostly your bank account will give you a loan, or Almi will also give you a loan. Almi has 3 verticals: loan, financing, and then the business coaching. So they have 3 verticals. One of them is loans. They will also give loans. And again, so you just have to search the loans part in Sweden and you will find a lot of opportunities. And then the typical startup thing, the equity and accelerators. There are so many government backed, like Almi, Sting, Antler, Norsaken. They will take some equity from your company and give you some funding based on the idea and the product, at what stage it is. And don't forget, you don't have to build something already. You can actually be at the idea stage. For example, companies like Almi and some other organizations, they actually fund at the idea stage. You don't have to build a full-fledged product and have customers already. And if you have that, then there is a different program. There are a lot of funding opportunities and grant opportunities for the early stage ideas. You just have to create a prototype, wireframes, or build some nice documentation or a pitch deck, and you can go to these organizations and then apply for grants or funding. And there are so many Swedish VCs. There are so many Swedish VCs which are ready to put the money. You just have to go and present your idea. And you can also go for crowdfunding. So I will just summarize again, like grants, loans, equity, crowdfunding. These are the 4 ways you can attract money. Again, if you are doing for visa, or if you are passionate about business, it doesn't matter. If you entered into the entrepreneurship, you should try all this, because you are in Sweden, and Sweden is one of the best countries to start a startup. And then there are New Företags Centrum, and then even Arbetsförmedlingen came up with some program. So you can also reach out to them, especially if you worked here for a while and then you become unemployed. And if you're planning to start a business, they have, I think, at least 12 months of support. They have some Swedish term. I don't know how to pronounce now, but you can go and check Arbetsförmedlingen, and they have specifically something for this kind of work. And not only this, and there is tax relief for payroll cost. When you are an employer, you will usually pay employer contribution, Arbetsgivare, when you're paying salaries. So there is tax relief for that. And there is also R&D relief and cut for employer contribution by 20%. And there are so many support systems, government-backed, privately held, VCs, etc. So that's the list I could say.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of the main ones, and I just want to pause for a second before we go on to the next question. And I think us as panelists, maybe we, if anyone's willing, we could share if we have used any of these resources, or have we gotten any funding, any investments? Maybe share some of our personal stories really quick. I just want to share my personal story because I think it's a little bit fun. Because again, as I mentioned, I never expected to get into entrepreneurship. It kind of happened by accident, where I was networking to try to find my next job. And somebody in my network who was a native Swede said, maybe you should go as a consultant. I said, how do I do that? Oh, talk to this person at Nyföretagcentrum, which I had never heard of. I went there for one meeting, and they're basically they're fun. I believe they're government funded, and they're free. It's free mentorship, but it's almost like paying somebody to be your business coach, but it's free for you. So I went there, and that's where I learned how to price myself as a consultant, which we're actually going to go over that. I believe we have that question coming up in a minute in our next category. How do you price yourself and so on? So we'll get to that, but they taught me all about the tax system, understanding consulting rates versus just getting a salary. And I just kept taking the next step and the next step. So that individual at Nyföretagcentrum would say, why don't you go to Science Park, where they have a lot of free mentorship, or they can help you with your business idea funding. And then they told me to go to Almi. So I actually did get funding in my early days from Almi. I was successfully approved several times for funding there. And I actually have a pretty fun story about Arbetsförmedlingen. They have something called Start the EGET, which is essentially, it's a little bit tricky. And I do recommend that everybody check what the current rules are, because I know they are different from when I worked with them. But during my first layoff, it was right around COVID time, I was suggested to go there to start the EGET instead of it's not the job searching Arbetsförmedlingen, it starts the EGET, which is start your own company. They had me create a business plan, which yes, I did translate into Swedish. This was before ChatGPT, and when Google Translate wasn't that great. So I actually had to hire somebody to manually translate it. But essentially, because it was during COVID, I actually got they essentially paid what would have been my unemployment benefits, but as a salary for 1 year, 1 whole year, you guys. And I caught them in the last month before that deadline ended. So now it's down, I think it's 6 months still. That was the original one. But you cannot register your business first until you talk to them. So they have to approve the business plan, and then you register the business, from what I remember. So if you're interested in something like that, definitely reach out to them. That's a little bit of my story. But actually, I want to start with Saya, because Saya, I know that you've been pretty involved with the entrepreneurship scene, and you've even participated in like events for maybe like funding, or what can you tell us about some advice or your own personal background on this?
Oh, I would say, I mean, it depends on what like your overheads are, right? I think that if you have staff and stuff like that, then obviously funding can feel a little bit slower. We have taken Almi loans. I believe we've taken 2 Almi loans now, and then we've also done Tillväxtverket as well. So we've gone through kind of more public loan options. Obviously, the downside to loans is that you got to pay it back and the amortization and stuff like that. But it's over a long period of time as well. And they're actually really flexible with you. If you're having kind of problems with your finances, then you can have those discussions with them, with your case officer, and then they can kind of halt the amortization for a period of time and things like that. So I would say that Almi is definitely one to go through. And then I've participated in different like pitching competitions, and some of them have had money as a prize. Some of them have kind of done connections with investors and stuff like that. So we've kind of gone through the public and the private systems. And I think that there are a lot of different options, but I do also think that planning your business model and your plan around the idea that getting the finances is going to take a while. Even with Almi, you don't just say, I would like some money, please. and then they give you the money. Is you actually have to, like, you do the meetings and they have to check your background and see if you're actually going to pay it back and all those sort of things. So like also start thinking about money well before you actually need the money as well. Like you can't be like, we're going to run out of money at the end of this month, let's start finding other options. You need to actually, you know, be looking 3 to 6 months ahead of time based on how long it might take to close things. But that's just been my experience. You're muted, Amanda.
Sorry about that. I was saying, I see a really interesting question, Saya, that I wonder if you could answer quickly in the chat. It says, how funding and help from Arbeids Vermellingen can it impact your business visa application? That's a really good like cross-section, cross-category question for you.
I mean, I think that if you can get funding from them for an extent, I think it's okay. But if you don't have the base finances, that minimum 20,000 euro requirement from personal finances, then I don't think it doesn't help. So I don't think it works against you if you have some level of financing from them, as long as you have your own personal finances beyond that as well.
As long as it's not the main financing.
Yeah, I would say, but that's just my risk aversion, I would say. But they typically wouldn't want you necessarily relying heavily on the state, for example.
I see another question down here. Can I get details about accelerators, VC, and other designated organizations that can assist in setting up business? Frankie, I know you've added some of this to the resource document that we're going to be sending out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have. But there's a lot, like, especially if you come here as a student, you definitely have access to a lot of incubators, startup innovation hubs, things like this. If you are here just as an entrepreneur in Sweden, there's also lots of VCs and lots of platforms I've pitched for. Connect Sverige is a big VC in Sweden. There's many different ones across Swedish cities. There's also Venture Cup for business ideas that are brand new. They haven't started a business, but if you have a business idea you want to pitch and you want to go through Venture Cup's competition, they have also across several Swedish cities. You don't have to just be in Stockholm. There's lots of different places. So I can put a bunch of the links in the resource document. There's Sting, there's Antler, and they help you at different stages of the startup journey. So from ideation, like you don't even have an idea yet, to then finding co-founders, to then scaling. There's different incubators, different startup hubs, different VCs and angel investor platforms for different stages of startup development. So this involves a lot more research, and I can put a bunch of them in the resource document.
Frankie, do you have any personal stories regarding your business to share in terms of like, have you gotten funding, or what do you feel comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah, I can definitely share, but unfortunately, I have not gotten funding. I have the opposite problem, which is we were completely bootstrapped. So everything, so I put 25,000 SEK in of my own money. I had a lot of savings. I worked really hard for that money. Then when crap hit the fan, my mom did cover for me a few times that we were cash flow negative. So thank God for my mom. I come from a middle-class family, so we don't have a lot of money to spare, but my mom had some savings, and she's like, well, you're not going to have a bridal shower anytime soon, so I guess I can give you this for your business shower. And yeah, so she covered the ground a few of the times that we were cash flow negative in the past 2 years of our business. She has come and supported me, and I'm not shy about sharing that, because I need everyone to know that, like, I don't live in a vacuum, and I'm also not a trust fund baby. So if you don't have someone that is supporting in your system, be it your partner, be it your family, someone that you can ask for money if stuff is really tight, then maybe this is a very unstable and uncertain path for you. But outside of bootstrapping with my own money, and sometimes asking friends and family to crowdfund, and then of course repaying those loans at 0% interest, or whatever interest my friends and family are comfortable with, I would say that I've tried pretty much every other source of funding. Like, I've tried going the VC route. The problem with VC, at least in my case, they all loved me. They said my business model was amazing. We had traction, we have customers, but they say it's too small a pie. So VCs, they usually go for investments of over 500,000 SEK. So I was asking for 10,000 SEK so I can convert that into a 3 million return. They didn't think I was ambitious enough. So that was a problem. If you want to go the VC route, you definitely are looking at maybe a high pie kind of situation, like a tech unicorn or something very scalable. If you want to put yourself through that is because VCs usually look for those big return payouts. So VC route is not for everybody. I've had one angel investor, so someone who did give me some cash for a very low percentage interest rate loan. And now I've repaid that investor because we have good cash flow in my business. But generally speaking, I would say we bootstrap the whole thing. The best thing you can do as a small business owner or SME owner or startup founder is you need to try as soon as possible get to a break-even point with your own leads, your own revenue sources within the business. Do not rely heavily on investors if you don't have anything that's like tech related. So if you have a very like down-to-earth mom and pop shop situation or idea, do not think, okay, investors are going to come and, give me a 2 million SEK to pay my salary. Like they're not going to do that unless they see the return. So if you, like me, have a service-based idea or a product-based idea that is very small scale, or you want to start it small and grow organically, focus first and foremost on getting it to a point of break even where your costs are covered by the revenue, the sales you're making. That's what we did within our first year. We got to a profitable break-even point within our first year. Not a huge profit margin at the moment, but we're on our second year and we're already seeing 200% growth year to year. So what I'm saying is try to really maintain, a lean startup, a lean business, and minimize costs, maximize sales, get a good flow of leads going, get regular revenue, and then you won't need investors. Your business will be able to be manageable and self-sufficient. So if you can't find funding externally, that's something you can do. Final little note, I also tried the Almi loan. They didn't like me. They said I didn't have enough assets. I was like, I'm the asset. What are you talking about? But it's true. If you don't have a mortgage, like if you don't own a home, it's going to be really hard for you to justify to them that you have collateral for them to take in case, stuff happens and then you can't pay back the loan. So, but if you, for example, own a home or own an apartment, maybe it's easier to go the loan route. So just be wary of your circumstances, right? Now, I'm a young person. I don't own a home. I don't know if I'll ever own a home. So I didn't have a mortgage to back up my claim that I could repay the loan. So if your business is your only asset, you really need to invest on getting a good cash flow going and trying to maintain the costs and everything else from the business, not relying on external funding. So and start small. Like we started 2 years ago, we already are going on 1 million SEK revenue business. So you can do it. You can do it. If I can do it, everyone can do it. I promise. Okay, that's my advice.
Thank you, Frankie. I mean, definitely it's actually, I'm really glad that you're sharing your story because not everybody's going to have the same situation, the same background. I am also essentially bootstrapped. Yes, I got a little bit of funding from Almi, but it wasn't enough to carry the business. So everything I'm doing is completely through what I bring in through the company. So I just actually want to go over to Jagadish really quick. Did you have any background that you want to share? Like, do you have any personal experience through your business with funding, investments, and so on?
Yeah, funding and investments, I did not go because same like Frankie, mine was service-based business when I started. And I had clarity that, okay, I'm not going to go for any funding with this business model. So right now I'm in the process of going for funding. I'm preparing the pitch for my AI and blockchain-based HR tech project. Maybe next year, this time I could share more insights about the funding part. But the service-based part, I also don't recommend people going for funding or loans because the market has been not so great in the last 2 years. So how will you pay back your loans? If you are 100% not sure about paying back the loans, I don't recommend, even if you're really good at pitching and getting the loans, because we're talking a lot about loans and funding. So even if you get the funding also, you will have you're accountable for someone. Be careful with that. So don't get too excited because there are so many opportunities. But I did get support from the Stockholm Business Region. They have this scale-up program. They tied up with the scale-up school, and they offered step 1 and step 2. I could be part of that program. I submitted the application. I found it purely through the curiosity of, okay, I need to get some support. I have been doing this for 3 years. I don't have any direction. I'm just going on my own. I need to talk to fellow founders. I need to see what's happening in the startup ecosystem. That's how I found them, and it's government backed. And then they have provided a great support, narrowing down the customers and customer segments. I was not really good with the sales terminology and all this stuff. They took very good in-person and online sessions, and they supported, and they did step 2 the next year. And we finished the step 2, and they're also now offering the further steps in the loans and other stuff. But at least with SITA, I'm not going to go through the route. And I also got into the Almis business coaching. So the business coaching vertical. So they assigned one dedicated resource, and we get to meet. It's a very flexible way of booking the meeting. We can also go in person and meet, and we can talk. And after moving to Gothenburg, I also went to Xbox. It is another amazing place. You go there, and it's a very good startup vibe there. And there are so many possibilities. Funds, loan-wise, no personal experience so far. Maybe next year, this time I could share. But in other support system-wise, there are so many things that I have gone through. I would also like
Can
to
I say just one last thing?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Jagadish. Go ahead.
I see Anil is asking one question about can I get details about accelerators, VC, other designated organizations that can assist in setting up business and startup? Anil, I just wanted to add one thing. Even Srirama also asked one question. You don't have to go to VCs or accelerators to set up the business or startup. Don't expect someone to hold your hand in registering your company. So all these support systems are for next level. So it's the basics. Registering the company and startup is very basic. You should be able to do it. And I can relate. When I wanted to start my company, I was not really sure. I wanted to avoid registering the company at all costs, because when I was back in India, when I was training, mentoring, I don't have to register a company to train someone and collect the fees, training fees. I can just ask them to pay to my account. It's very straightforward, easy. There is not so strong tax system or all these things. But in Sweden, it's not possible. But it also comes from the mindset dealing with the government agencies from your country. In your country, it can be extremely difficult to get something done with the government agencies. And you carry that here, and you think that, okay, now I have to contact Worksamt, I have to contact Bolagsverket, I have to contact Migration Agency. Okay, it's too many government agencies. I'm not going to do it. But trust me, in Sweden, the agencies will help you in all the possible ways, will encourage you, will support you. You just have to make a call or send a mail. You can register the company sitting at your home online, 100%. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to step outside of your home. Even the bank account, everything, you can do it. It is very easy, very straightforward. Just go to Worksamt. Everything is clearly mentioned step by step, whether you are inside the country, outside the country, whether you want to register N-Skill firm, sole proprietorship, or any type of company. Step-by-step instructions are there. You just start. If you are stuck, call them, mail them. They will help you. They will support you. So drop that mindset of dealing with government agencies and getting into trouble. You don't have to. You can actually ask them. They will help you and support you. I just wanted to add that to Anil's question from my perspective. Yeah. Yes, Frank, you were saying something.
Yeah, I want to answer also quickly this question from Eldin. I see that you have a startup company outside the EU that produces toys made from bioplastics. I would like to know if this type of industry is supported in Sweden. Quickly, for anyone who has an idea that is impact driven, so this would be like a fitting, idea. Anything that has to do with sustainability, green tech, I don't know, like reutilizing stuff. Check out Norrskön. I'm going to include that link in the resource document. Norrskön is an impact ecosystem. They help you with, setup, support, pitching, all kinds of other things, especially if you're in green tech and like impact-driven startups that probably won't see a profit for a very long time. They have the ecosystem to help you, thrive. And they have not only locations in Stockholm, but they also have locations all around Europe, depending on where you're joining from. So maybe other places might be easier to go in, break into. But Sweden definitely has a lot of investment in impact companies, like, for example, green tech companies, or companies are working with recycling plastics and all these other like sustainable things. So yeah, just wanted to quickly jump on there.
All right, that was a very exciting but detailed category. And again, the resource document, for those of you asking questions about it, it will be sent out to the email list that you use to register for this event in about 25 minutes. So at 6 p.m. Swedish time. So that's about 25 minutes from now. So make sure you have registered for the event. If you haven't, I can go ahead and drop the link here in the comments in just a minute, so you can go ahead and get on that list so you can get that document sent to you. But that document's going to have a lot of these different organizations that we're listing, or that we're saying will all be listed in that document. So that's just a quick reminder. With that being said, it's now time for the next category. I actually did a poll on my LinkedIn page asking which area should, do you want us to cover the most? This one was the main leader in that category. I think it had over like 50% out of 4 different categories. It was heavily leading. I know you guys are really curious about it. Like this is the moment you might have voted for. So this category is finding your first paying customers, or how do you find customers? How do you do the marketing? How do you basically bring in money? Like maybe we can talk about getting funding and how do you manage the finances and bookkeeping, but there's no bookkeeping without customers. Now, this is something that I'm passionate about marketing. That's actually my main background that I came from. I still love to do marketing. That's one of the funnest parts of my business is I do a lot of my own marketing because I like it. But a lot of you maybe might not come from that background, or maybe you don't need to do marketing, or it's just a little confusing. So we're going to answer some of your questions about finding your first paying customers, or any paying customers. So the first question we have here is for Frankie. So Frankie, here's a 2-part question. So how did you go about figuring out your business offer, and how did you start?
Yeah, so there's a few ways that you can go about this. Like I said, currently have a service-based business. I think the first thing you need to figure out is, do you want to provide a service, or do you want to, create a product? There's also a third branch of businesses, which is like content or info related. So for those of you asking about content businesses, starting a course, info product, or whatever, that's a little bit different setup, but I'll focus on product versus service. So depending on where you're at in terms of your skill set, the funding that you have, all kinds of things like this, product, usually if it's software or hardware, you're going to need an investment of capital. So it's really about your constraints, your conditions. Do you have money to invest into inventory if it's a physical product, or into software development if it's a digital product? Then you're going to need a lot of capital in this kind of business. In a service-based business, this can be anything from a nail salon to like a tour company like mine. There you're going to look at maybe not an investment of capital, but an investment of a lot of time to set up your systems and really get it going, so that you start to get leads and marketing your way. So depending on which one you pick, then your strategy will be a bit different how you approach it. How do you define that business offer? I go back to what Jagadish said. Know what your skills are. What are people coming to you for? Without even like trying to monetize them. What are people coming to you for? That will tell you what your expertise is in. People are trusting you with something, then you should probably follow that. Like for me, people would come to me for resources, community building. They would come to me for communication, like skills, things like this. So I try to just turn that into a business, because then if people are already coming to me for that, they trust me with that, then I can probably leverage it and monetize it, if that's something you want to do, right? Now, beyond what people are coming to you for, there's another way that you can do it. You can go and do market research. Again, you have ChatGPT, you have Perplexity, you have all these amazing tools these days. They will tell you what low hanging fruit business ideas still exist in our markets today, okay? So if you don't know where to start,
Google it, like YouTube it, ChatGPT it. There's going to be something that you can prompt to be able to give you some ideas and get the brainstorming going. I also advise any new like startup founders or entrepreneurs to keep like a booklet or like if you're old school like me, or like a notes app where you're writing down ideas about problems that you just look at and you face every day. You're finding problems as you go about your life and you think, oh, maybe there can be a solution here, and do your research. Is there already an existing solution? Can you improve upon it? It doesn't have to be a completely new idea, just improve upon what's being done, and then see where it matches your skill set. So that's how you decide on a business offer. The way you go from there is then you start to see, okay, is it a service? Is it a business? Is it a product-based business? And depending on that, then you can start developing the business. And I always say, try to get traction first to test out your idea before you put any money into it or more time into it. I use this in a lot of design thinking process that I use. So design thinking, it involves going and checking with people. Hey, is my idea worth anything before I even start working on it? Use a paper prototype. Do you have an idea for an app? Make it in a paper, like just draft it out, like what an iPhone would look like, what the app would look like, the homepage, whatever. Make it on Canva, make it on one of these digital platforms. Try to do a role play, like ask your friends, ask your neighbors. Like everybody has a network, even if they don't think they do. Ask somebody around you, is this idea any good? And they will give you real feedback. They will probably tell you it's crap, but like still you can work with that. Like be constructive about it. And then once people are invested in your idea because they're like, oh yeah, I had that problem, so you came and you asked me about it, then you can start developing solutions for it. This is where you start to test and ideate fast. So do not put money into things until you've tested very well. And then once you do test the idea, like I had over 300 customers that I talked to, potential customers for my current business before we actually started the business. And they had talked to me about their problems. Day in, day out. Oh, I can't find, interesting things to do in Stockholm. Or, 80% of people arrive in Stockholm city, they just go on a walk because they don't have information about what to do in the city. Okay, these are gaps in the market. So then you can start addressing those gaps by creating solutions and offers from a business perspective. But it has to match your skill set. I always say, otherwise you're going to burn out and you're not going to be motivated for a long period of time if it's something you don't enjoy or something you're not really good at. Okay? So don't start an AI company if you have no freaking clue about AI or you have no interest in AI, because you're going to burn out and you're going to feel like the dumbest person on earth, and you're going to feel like, oh, I thought everybody said it was so easy to start an AI company. Please don't do that. There's still opportunities within small businesses. It doesn't have to be all tech-based, but you need to start somewhere where it makes sense for you and it makes sense for people you're speaking with. The problems they're telling you, try to come up with solutions for those. And that can be a business. Okay, I hope I started and ended the question.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I know you have a lot of us have a lot of knowledge on this. I just want to ask the audience who's listening a quick question, if you can answer this in the chat, because this is such a popular requested topic, and we only have a limited amount of time. We have maybe 20 to 30 minutes left to get through some of the questions. How does everybody feel about the idea of maybe having a separate kind of a webinar at some point to teach you a lot more of the details? So for example, just to expand on what Frankie was talking about, she's really talking about doing some kind of market research. There's tons of advice, like books and different methods that I don't think we have time to go into, which you can definitely get help from All Means Science Park. But what do you guys think about us doing some kind of future event on marketing, specifically since I have a background in marketing? Let's say you want to do like content creation. I saw that question. Just leave us something in the chat. So if I get enough feedback, that would maybe be the next step where we could teach you, step by step, how do you get clients research and all of that. With that being said, I want to move into the next question. This is for Jagadish, actually. So my question for you is, what's the easiest way for new entrepreneurs in Sweden to find consulting clients or customers?
Yeah, there is no easiest way. There's a straightforward answer. Consulting is highly competitive in Sweden. I got my first consulting client after 2 years after I started. Of course, first year I did not try, but once I started trying, I realized it's very hard. I added, not exhaustive, but list of almost 15 consulting agencies that you could register yourself as an independent or individual consultant or a consulting agency with more consultants in your team. In those platforms, you can find opportunities. But from my personal experience of almost 5 years of trying so hard in finding consulting opportunities, most of the consulting opportunities are gone through the networking. Those platforms are mainly used for the formalities, the paperwork. For example, eWork Group. eWork Group is one of the most popular consulting platforms, not only in Sweden, in some other European countries. But companies and consulting agencies use it for finishing the formalities because they do the paperwork in the platform. Mostly the opportunity is decided through the network. That's why, though you register, you use that to get the information about who is posting the opportunities and maybe try to meet them in person. One advice, if I could give, first of all, I personally don't consider consulting as a typical startup entrepreneurship, because you don't go for funding, investing, equity, pitching, all these things, because you are actually selling the services, maybe your services for consulting, or maybe you have a team of consultants who will sell the services. It's not actually you're building a product for yourself and going for pitching and investing, something like that. So these two, I see them as a separate thing. But yeah, the typical consulting part, my advice is, unless you meet the person, you meet them in person, whoever is going to post the consulting opportunities, you can't cut the deal. That's what I've learned. I've spoken to some, and also unfortunately, it's highly dominated by Swedish-speaking people. I'm saying Swedish-speaking people, but read it as Swedish natives. So it is highly dominated by Swedish natives, the consulting agency. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. It is definitely possible. A lot of people are doing it. I am doing it. I have done it. I found a very good consulting opportunities with H&M, and also through some UK consulting companies with Volvo and some other companies. It is definitely possible. It is hard, one thing, and you have to meet in person, which will actually help you close the deal faster compared to the traditional way of registering in the portals and then applying and then doing all this stuff. So that's what I would say, Amanda.
Yeah, I think it's good that you're sharing the honest reality of consulting in Sweden. I just want to kind of add on to that really quick. So I want everyone to remember, Sweden is a country of a little less than 11 million people. I made a post the other day that was somehow controversial. I shared a statistic, but it's just a statistic. And I think people were really shocked at the statistic that I believe it said that 5.4 million people were employed, had jobs, not unemployed, were employed in Sweden. That's still quite low. And that number doesn't include, to my knowledge, consultants who are registered as freelancers or Enho Firma. So I believe it's 26% of people in the workforce now, which is about a quarter, are consultants. So it's definitely becoming more popular, but it's something that you can kind of expand on in terms of, I can give my quick advice. I've worked as a consultant. I'd say I've had a lot of clients in Sweden. I've had a few outside of Sweden. I agree with Jagadish that I got clients in Sweden through two different ways. One of them, no one's surprised, which is networking. Okay, networking. I actually have a free networking webinar. I'm including it in the resource document, and you can find it also on my website. But it goes into explicit detail about why networking is so important in Sweden compared to maybe some other countries. It might be helpful, but in Sweden, there are very specific reasons why they trust networking more than cold applications, and how that can benefit you as an international. So definitely make sure you check that out on my website or in the resource document. So that's the first way, but there's a surprising second way. I would say 50% of my consulting contracts came in through this second avenue, and that is personal branding. So I know this isn't going to be for everybody. I know some people are like, I just can't stand social media. I can't stand I don't want to get my hands in that. But if you are willing to do this, I will be completely upfront and honest with you. Since I started posting on LinkedIn, I think I started posting once a week, and then I bumped it up to 3 times a week. Now I post 5 to 7 days a week. Usually I schedule it so I'm not on it every day. But the point I'm trying to make is, when I started being in the front of my industry. So sharing industry insights, making myself visible. I actually not only started getting people privately messaging me, so I started generating leads with very little work, very little networking. It was some kind of backhanded form of networking without having to talk to a bunch of people. Secondly, I would say 25% of that 50% of clients actually came from referrals of people I had never met. So what that means is people who had been seeing my posts. I mean, a lot of you know me by now. You know, I've been consistent. I post a lot about my insights. So you learn to kind of trust me. And then I'll give you a good example. There was a student who their teacher was looking for a speaker for a speaking event, and they recommended me. I got that speaking event with very little effort. I didn't have to sell myself. So I'm just going to put that out there. Consider personal branding. I do have a note about this in the resource document, and I do offer personal branding, like a training session. So definitely go to that resource or reach out to me if you want to learn more exactly what personal branding is and how to do it. But I just wanted to go ahead and add that on to what Jagadish is. So I want to go ahead and move on to the next question, so we can keep things kind of moving along here. So for Saya, this question is for you. How can you determine how much to charge and where to find that information?
So this is kind of comes down to a lot of like grunt work in terms of knowing what you're offering and then knowing who your competitors are, figuring out what their prices are. And then from there, you want to figure out, sorry, my cat is walking across the table right now. Figuring out what your unique selling proposition is in terms of, I'm just going to use my previous business as an example. So I had a scuba diving center in Honduras before this, and we were newbies in terms of like to the island. So what we did is we figured out what everybody's prices were, and we priced ourselves in the middle of that. Then we figured out, are we then cheaper and lower service, or are we then like a boutique higher service one? And that's our differentiator. And then we're going to charge based on that. So we spent a year or two mid-priced building our reputation as a boutique brand and as a really like high quality brand. And then 2-3 years later, we raised our prices a little bit. And the year after that, we raised our prices a lot. But at that point, we had built up the branding to match it. And then our price matched the branding, and that was our differentiator. So that's how we chose that, was we basically did the market research, priced in the middle, figured out which direction we were going to go. And then a few years later, after building up the brand name and the trust in the brand, then we raised our prices. In a similar way with what we do now, what we used to charge for company support for work permit applications was too low in hindsight. And that's the downside if you price yourself too low, because I know that is an instinct or an idea you'll have is like, oh, I should price myself really low because that's how I'm going to get the customers. But then you tend to either, not to say have problematic customers, but like you might end up having then maybe the customers you're not particularly after, or the ones that aren't willing to stick with you when you do raise your prices. So for services and things like that, or things that require hourly care, then I would recommend, again, figure out where you are pricing wise per hour, kind of count for the number of hours that would go into a specific product, like for example, a work permit application, and then adjust your pricing accordingly. We drastically raised our prices this year, but we also drastically improved or increased the comprehensiveness of what we offer in that. And we were super afraid when we first charged that. And we sent a proposal to a company and they were like, okay. And so we were like, oh no, we priced too low again. But we like quadrupled our price for this specific thing, but we added a few additional services to it. And companies were happy to pay that. And then they were very low stress companies as well. And they believed in the value of what we were doing. So I would say that, but it requires a lot of market research. Of you have to go and find your competitors. You have to figure out what you offer in comparison to them, and then price yourself accordingly. But don't immediately aim for, like in the beginning when you're trying to figure out what you're offering. And like Frankie was saying, like, you know, in the beginning, you're trying to figure out what you can potentially do for free, or like have those sort of conversations, but you shouldn't price yourself so low compared to the market standards, because you're not going to get the clients you want, and you're not going to be able to raise your prices accordingly, because all that goodwill you built up with those companies, they're not going to follow you. So it's a lot of just Googling and checking and seeing what others charge too.
I'm just going to add a quick little side note to this, and then we're going to move on to our final category. So there is a difference. I think the core concept and idea you're trying to give here, Saya, is you really do need to do market research, and then also price it according to your skill level and what you're offering. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but I would recommend everyone to try going to Ny Företagscentrum, because they can help you to understand not only pricing, but Swedish pricing. That's the group that actually helped me to figure out what my consulting rate should be. And it was really confusing at first because of how many taxes they take out versus, what your actual, what you're used to getting to in a salary versus a consultant. So for example, if you're a consultant, you could charge 1,000 or more crown an hour, which would be absolutely crazy for a salary. But like, let's say, for example, if it's less than 50% of your 40-hour work week, you're going to charge higher. I mean, there's a lot of little nuance that goes into it. They do have a document that they give out for free that actually pre-calculates everything. I believe it should be in the resource document, where I'm going to link to it, where I've actually translated it into English because they have it all in Swedish. So it's like the Swedish English version. But that's my little side note, is if you're going to go into consulting, actually drop something in the chat if you think maybe we can talk about doing another webinar just on, like, let's say, consulting and understanding how to do those rates, things like that. I think that would be really interesting for you guys, but I want to make sure it's interesting for you. So just let us know in the chat. And I saw that you guys left a lot of yeses earlier. It came in kind of late when we asked about the marketing. So for the panelists, for you guys listening, I mean, maybe we should talk about doing something in terms of marketing. But if you want to know a little bit more about consulting pricing, maybe we could do a little 1-hour session on that. So,
can I just add one thing, because you were mentioning consulting? I think it's important for people that want to start businesses to also understand that if you're hired as a consultant to a bigger company, for example, one of the reasons that they're willing to pay more for consultants is because when it comes to layoffs, for example, then the consultants are also the first ones to go, and you don't have 3-month termination notices, and you don't have severance and things like that. So I think it's also understanding that is that instability of you get to charge more per hour. You obviously have more expenses because, like, you're handling the business yourself, but you also have to work on the assumption that if there are mass layoffs in a company, the likelihood of you being earlier to go is also higher. Just to take that into consideration when you're thinking about, like, pursuing these sort of things.
Yeah,
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I feel like people should, like,
you need to know.
think
Yeah,
about that.
There's more risk. Yeah, there's more risk with consultants because they have less labor implications if they get laid off. And that's why also consultants can charge more than a typical employee, because you have to do your own taxes, you have to take your own deductions, all these other things. But definitely, as a consultant, you need to cover your bases when it comes to the risks and understand the risks. I think Saya pointed that out very well.
I see a couple yeses here about doing another session about consulting rates. We'll definitely take that into consideration for you guys. Maybe like a quick 1-hour session that's like hyper focused on this. And again, we're going to have a lot of stuff. You guys check out the resource document because some of these questions might be answered there. But let's go ahead and move to the last category. We're going to be like slightly over time, you guys. So panelists, if you're okay with answering one more question each, are you guys okay with that? One more question for panelists so we can wrap it up. So this one is about real stories and real challenges. So we've each been already sharing about our own personal experiences, but this is just going to be about questions for you and your business. So the first one is for Jagadish. So your question is, you mentor many internationals entering Sweden's tech industry. Can you share one inspiring story of someone who started a business or side hustle successfully?
I have a couple of stories, actually. One story is, I don't want to take the names. She came as a dependent to Sweden with her partner, but she had expertise in SAP consulting. And there is no market for SAP in Sweden, actually. So she started looking out for remote opportunities outside of Sweden, but within Europe, mostly remote. And she managed to find one client. And then she approached an umbrella company and started working as a consultant. And the client started paying very well. And within few months, and she found another client from Ireland. And then she got two clients, and she reached a point where she started sending invoices 250,000 for both clients per month. And then she started her own AB. She registered, and then she's still continuing. She has two more clients, but when I spoke with her last time, she has two clients, but now maybe she has third client. I'm not sure, but that is one story, very good story. But it took for her almost 3 years, starting from no job, kind of unemployment, to finding a client, working as a consultant, and then starting her own company, and now very well established. There is also one more story. Again, same, came as a dependent. Most of the people I mentor are dependents, came with their partners, even men or women, doesn't matter. She comes from a marketing background, same like you, Amanda, but she couldn't. Yeah, she again. So all the creative jobs are very difficult to get in Sweden when it comes to permanent employment, which is the dream in Sweden for everyone. It is very difficult. You take UI UX design, sales, marketing, and any other creative fields like photography, videography, or some other fields. It's very difficult to get a job as an employee. So she tried for several years, and then she's very good with lead generation and marketing, etc. So she started her own firm, and she found, now she's at the stage of finding small clients. She is working with solopreneurs and some other small entrepreneurs. That's how I've become her client. Now I'm paying. Hopefully, it will go even further in the future. So those are the two stories I can share. Who came as dependents to Sweden.
That is so fun to hear some inspiring stories. I know Frankie just dropped a comment that you love an inspiring success story.
I love it. I love it. Puts a smile on my face. I love when people succeed, in spite of the odds. I think it's just so inspiring. So, yeah.
Well, the next question is for you, Frankie. So you went from rejection in the job market to running a team of 10. What was the hardest moment, and how did you push through?
I think there was someone in the comments saying that the hardest moments define you. And I think that's definitely been the case in my entrepreneurial journey. I can think of two, and one of them was in my first year of business. Like, I got to a point where we had a really bad month cash flow wise, and I could tell that I was going to be late to paying my staff. And that's never a good position to be in. It will keep you up at night. And I'm someone, I care deeply about the people I hire. Like, we are a strong team of very talented individuals. So I don't want to disappoint them and be the kind of boss that has to say, guys, we need to be delaying the payouts because some bills didn't come through. Some invoices were not paid yet. So that was probably the toughest moment in terms of my team and my business, to have that conversation and delay payment by like 2 weeks. So yeah, but being upfront about it, and I'm sharing this because I have no problem sharing these types of situations. I want people to be very aware of this sort of, I guess, like tough skin, thick skin that you have to have in order to be an entrepreneur. Because if you're someone who is very kind and generous, as I try to be, especially with my team, it is hard to have these like difficult conversations when you just want the best for them, and you wouldn't want to say to your employees like, hey, I'm going to be late paying you your salary, right? Like, nobody wants that situation. But if you have a month where it's not possible because you're a small business and cash flow is negative or something is happening, you have to find a solution. But then when you do find a solution, or your team sticks it out through the worst moments, like, you do feel kind of invincible, like you can do anything, and you have more motivation. I think I felt very motivated from that point onwards to never go through that situation again. There's no promises, obviously, but it definitely drove me to a point where I was like, I never want to have this difficult conversation again. So what can I do to make my business even more stable? So that was a difficult moment. And the final one was a personal one, because I think people often, they just look at the glamorous, glorious side of being an entrepreneur. And for me personally, I've had a lot of like individual sacrifice involved in becoming an entrepreneur. Like, I haven't paid myself a regular salary since we began. I only get paid out whenever we have like a lot of surplus. Okay. And this often means, like, I'm going to share this and hopefully nobody will judge me too harshly, but this often means sometimes I'm late to pay my rent, or I'm late to pay like certain bills, like insurance or something, my personal insurance, because like I couldn't make it that month. That's happened at least like 3 times in my entrepreneurial journey, where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be kicked out of my house, be evicted because I couldn't pay the rent on time? But eventually you always make it. So I'm not advocating for you to not pay your rent. I'm just saying that if there is no other alternative because you can't pay your salary that month, if you care about paying your employees before yourself as a founder, then there's ways to make it through. So I'm saying that it's just not as glamorous as people like to claim it to be. So I'm trying to give you the most honest, raw, like toughest moments of my entrepreneurial journey. So you know it's not going to be fun most of the time, but it is fun most of the time and totally worth it. So not everybody should be an entrepreneur, but everybody could. And if you see yourself reflected in any of the stories we shared today, I think, and if you're willing to take on the risk and the uncertainty, just because also the world is uncertain and it can all go up to, crap tomorrow. So I would say entrepreneurship can be a good path for you. So that's my story.
Thank you, Frankie. That's, you're always being honest with us. And I think there's a lot of, even if there's an entrepreneur watching right now, they could probably relate. Having a business.
If it's any consolation, Frankie, I've taken like 3 salaries in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Okay,
definitely.
I can add, I haven't taken any salary because when I started, mostly I was working as a consultant. So I was not considering it as a primary source of income. And we were making very good money till 23. But everybody knows since 23 mid, the job market crashed, especially the tech market. And whatever the money I made, I have to put back into the company again to keep it alive. And you already mentioned, Frankie, at the beginning of the session, you can start. It is easy to start, but you will only continue if you have passion about what you are doing. Otherwise, you would either burn out or you will give up. I could relate to everything that you mentioned.
Yeah, we have a couple comments in here too. Someone said, thank you all for taking the time to share your expertise with us in an optimistic but real way. This process can be confusing and intimidating, and it's nice to have more clarity. We also have, thank you for the transparency. And then we have really great webinar. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and expertise, and especially appreciate the transparency from Frankie and Saya. Yeah, I mean, this is, entrepreneurship. I'm not going to say I don't think anyone ever says it's easy. I've never heard anyone say entrepreneurship is easy unless I don't know who these people would be. It's not easy, but it's definitely an alternative path. Let's get through our final 2 questions because I know we're a little bit over time. The next question we have is actually for me. It's my own question to myself. As a coach, a career coach, you see a lot of internationals at their most vulnerable. What's one surprising obstacle people don't talk about when starting a business here? So business in Sweden. I actually want to share something that's really specific to Sweden. And this is another level of transparency that if you've worked as a consultant in Sweden or you're trying to find customers, particularly within the Swedish environment, so we're not talking about out of the borders, the way that once I started talking to more entrepreneurs or people who registered themselves as consultants, I started to notice a pattern that, it's not shared online because it's not glamorous. So a lot of people, like on LinkedIn, that's your marketing platform. But when you actually start talking to the entrepreneur community, like in one-on-one meetings, or you go to these meetup groups, which someone asked a question about that, and we'll answer that in a second, because I think it's a good follow-up question. But what I've learned is a lot of internationals and potentially non-internationals too. The Swedish market is, number one, it's quite small, but number 2, it also moves very slowly. I will be completely honest and direct that it is very difficult and not common to find consistent consulting contracts. What I find a lot is somebody will get lucky with a client, and either that'll last for X amount of time and then they're really looking for a while again, or like a couple things will pop in here and there as needed. But it's really hard to find that stability in the Swedish market unless you get really lucky. And this is happening to a lot of consultants, Swedish and internationals alike. And so what a lot of them do is they do expand beyond the Swedish borders. I mean, I've had clients from other countries, and I'm just going to be honest with people that if you want to go that route, you need to have a realistic mindset that it's not just how well can you market yourself and network. It actually has to do with the quantity and the amount of available opportunity in Sweden. So I'm just going to kind of leave you guys with that, where if you try consulting, or even maybe there's a panelist here who can relate, where you're just thinking, why is it taking so long to get people, not even to find an opportunity, but to get them sometimes to sign a contract? Things just move very slowly, and it's even worse now than it was in previous years because of the economy. So if you want to go into consulting or having a business registered here, be very open-minded to expanding beyond the Swedish border. So that's like a little like not publicly stated kind of a challenge I hear about. I want to go to the last question, which is Saya. So for Saya, have you ever faced a moment of self-doubt or failure in your business journey, and what helped you to keep going?
Oh my God, all the time. I'm perpetually in a state of self-doubt. There's no one singular moment. So I will say that I think, though, like, honestly, what's been helpful for me from a personal perspective in my journey here is the fact that I have had the finances to stick it out. I haven't had to like quit to get another job, or like that's the reason why a lot of founders or like startups end up like kind of ending, is because then they have to start making an income. And I've been kind of privileged in the position of I sold my previous business before COVID hit, which was like very lucky, and moved here, which means that like I have had the finances, and I have a really good support system in order to be able to keep going. And honestly, what has helped me keep going is literally just spite that I just refuse to quit. And like I refuse to let the people that tell me that like immigration isn't a good market, or they don't see the scalability or things like that, I refuse to let that be the thing that stops me as well. And I feel like also just being passionate about the problem that you're trying to solve, or about the topic that you're in, is really important as well. But in terms of like, more often than not, my husband will be like, you're just walking around with like stones on your shoulder all the time, mostly thinking about like finances and the market and things like that. And it's obviously like I work in a difficult industry, and I often spend a lot of time delivering bad news to people in my immigration consultations that I do as well. So like it can get really heavy, but that just makes me think that the work is that much more important. So that's mostly what like has helped me keep going, is also just not having the financial burden of, at least like I have to keep the company going and I can't take anything out, and I have to keep putting back into it, but I'm not constantly worried about, like Frankie's been before, about like not paying rent on time and things like that. That has been pushed from my mind, which has given me the stability to keep going, even with the ups and downs of the business. And like having other, like Frankie says as well, like I have a really good group of female founders that like we support each other and we love each other. And then like, you know, we have this community and all of us talk and things like that. Is I think that's been really important, to have other people that are sharing the struggle, and that you can be completely honest with them and they can be like, yeah, that sucks, and actually like feel it with you as well, I think is important.
I see all the panelists here. We're like shaking our heads like, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah,
I agree.
all the time. All the time.
Relatable.
I trust myself, but yeah, of course, like all the time. You're like, was this the right choice? Am I following the market correctly? Are people interested in what I'm doing? You always have to be thinking about those things.
Well, thank you for your honesty. I mean, I know a lot of us here in the panel can relate. I do see a follow-up question here in the comments. It says, how do you find your community of support? The solopreneurship journey is incredibly trying, and it makes and breaks people. I don't think we have a ton of time to like go into individual answers, but I will say, if you go to the resource document, which should have been sent out to your email by now, everyone should have access to it. If you don't see it, if wherever you're watching this video, there's going to be a link to sign up to continue to get that resource document. Check the details, check the comments, check your emails. I dropped the link a few times. I can drop it again, but we have a list there of multiple different communities that you can go to meet other expats, entrepreneurs. I know Jagadish added a few different communities, and I've also added a list, like a free Excel list of communities as well. So that's just something I wanted to remind everybody. Okay, now we're gonna move into, we're about to wrap this up. I just have like a rapid fire question for each of you. Just take 30 seconds maximum to answer this. It's a fun little question. So the question is, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you started, what would it be? I'm gonna go ahead and start with who wants to go first?
I will go last.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Is that what? Okay, Saya, is that your answer? Don't do it.
No, I would just say, honestly, like, keep taking risks, because like, just start to trust yourself, and the more risks you take and the more good outcomes you have, you just start to trust yourself so much more. And done is better than perfect. Don't get so caught up in trying to put out something that's perfect from the beginning that you fail to execute at all, I would say.
Agreed. All right, Frankie.
I'm going to reiterate, trust your gut. I'm a very intuitive person also. I think entrepreneurs in general, we're talking about risk a lot, but in risky or uncertain situations, we kind of just have to trust our gut. So I would say do that more, because the few times I've been burned as a business owner or as an entrepreneur have been because I didn't follow my gut. And that was never a good thing. So trust your gut. And talk to your customers every day, every single day. Go talk to them, listen to their complaints, see what they care about, see what they're worried about. There's no way on earth that you're not going to make something valuable for society, for the world, if you are listening to your customers. So go and listen, talk to your customers, and see what they want to see from you. So yeah, that's other advice.
Great. Jagadish, you want to go?
Yeah, so I would say the same. Start. Even I would have started, even if I go back 6 years, I would start. If I could go back 15, 16 years back, I would continue my yoga studio. I wouldn't stop it. Especially the international talent, whoever is watching, the energy and the effort you put to get the job is not enough for professional success in Sweden. That energy, that effort is not enough. So when you start your own entrepreneurship, the energy and the effort you put will make you more powerful and strong. That will enable you to get the job, or get the stable visa, or whatever you want. You will definitely be not the same person once you start entrepreneurship. Frankie already gave some examples. I can give so many examples from my personal life of entrepreneurship. You will be put into a situations where you never expected to be. You will become accountable for people. You will become accountable for the invoices that are coming in. You will become accountable for the customers that you have. So you will be sometimes in very uncomfortable situations, some rewarding situations, and you will definitely be not the same person. You will push yourself a lot. So I strongly recommend start. And if I go back 6 years ago, the one thing I will tell myself is to start attending a lot of networking events, join the networking groups. I'm not very comfortable with, I was not very comfortable with going and meeting people. I was not an extrovert, but I should have changed that very early. Now I changed, I go and meet people. That is one thing I advise. Again, the same international talent have a problem with going out and meeting people. Go out, step out, talk to customers, talk to people, talk to fellow founders, join the groups. That's what I would do. Yep.
Good advice. I guess I'll go ahead and add my little piece to this, the one piece of advice. Actually, I really agree with Saya in terms of, if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it's don't wait so long to take the risks. I'll give you guys a really quick example of this. After my last layoff, I basically, as usual, you apply for unemployment in Sweden, and it took me a good 2 years maybe of doing my business part-time in addition to a full-time job, because I was scared to take the risk to go full-time into the business. And I only got about 2 months of unemployment, and then I willingly stopped getting unemployment because I couldn't operate my business and get unemployment at the same time. They just wouldn't allow it. So I took that risk not knowing, am I even going to make enough money? And I've always been able to pay all of my bills ever since that. Like, I've never been in the negative. In fact, I have brought in more, I don't want to say stable income, but I've been feeling more in control about my finances since I decided to go full-time into this than to count on the unemployment system and the employment system in Sweden, because I can decide, let me do some marketing things and make some money and so on. So if I could give myself one piece of advice, it's don't wait so long to just go for it. Don't drag it out for years. I wish I would have went full time way before that. So if anyone's thinking about it, if you're going to do it, if you've assessed it, just go all in and give yourself a deadline. If it doesn't work by the end of the year, I'll move on. But don't go half in, half out like I did. I wish I would have just found out sooner. So that's my little piece of advice. So that's our last category. And I'm just going to do some quick wrapping this up. For this, I'm really happy that everyone showed up today. I can't exactly, I won't know how many people showed up until we end the session. It's live streaming from LinkedIn and 2 different YouTube channels. So we'll find that out later. There will be a webinar recording. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it should be uploaded to our YouTube videos our YouTube channels automatically because we're live streaming there. Is that correct, Saya and Frankie?
Yeah, so it'll stay on the channels and it'll stay on LinkedIn as well. And then I guess you'll be uploading it to your to Inner Talents YouTube as well, right?
Oh yeah, I'll be uploading it to the Inner Talents YouTube, but it's on Frankie's, and I believe the replay should automatically post to LinkedIn as well. Right?
Yeah, this will, yeah.
So you guys should be able to watch it there, but we're going to upload it anyways to the Inner Talents in Sweden YouTube channel. There is a free business resource document. I see that there's already a lot of people in it right now. So it did finally go, it automatically got sent to the email list. I do see a couple comments here that maybe some people, I see your little comment there, Frankie. Thank you. But if you haven't got it, just send an email to info@innertalentsin.sweden.com and we'll just manually send it to you. If you haven't gotten it yet, make sure you check your spam, make sure you check your other folder. It has been sent out. This is definitely a resource document where you're going to get a lot more of the things that we've talked about. If you're watching this in the future and you can't access it, send us an email, drop a comment. We'll try to get it to you, but it should be available at all times. And eventually it will be added to the Learn page of the Inner Talents in Sweden website. So if all else fails, just go there in about a week or so and it should be there. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, we want your feedback. If you like this event or you want us to do another one on a specific topic, leave a comment or send an email to info@innertalentsinSweden.com, or any of us, any of the panelists who are watching. Just let us know what you thought about it. If you want to contact us in any way, we are tagged in a lot of the comments or a lot of the promotion for this. There's a lot in the resource document. Again, we're just going to keep sending you back to that resource document. Other than that covers the entire event. So I don't know if anyone has any last minute words, but we're ready to wrap it up. I had a great time. I think there's so much more to cover. I hope you guys found this valuable. Let us know how we can improve it in the future.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for moderating. You're amazing.
This together as well.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It was great. All right. I think that's it. So thank you for everyone who's watching, and we'll see you at the next session, whenever that is.
Yep.
Bye, guys.